Drawing out the facts, the Naked Science Scrapbook. Hello and welcome. And fungi absorb the nutrients they need from anything like rotting wood, leaf litter, that forgotten bag of grapes lurking at the back of the fridge, and even the skin between your toes. The fluffy mould you see on a slice of bread reproducing sexually. Having the flexibility to reproduce asexually or sexually is a great advantage that allows fungi to exploit stable conditions or adapt to changing ones. And of course, some of these toadstools are also edible. Species like morels, chanterelles and giant puffballs, as well as the cultivated field mushrooms you buy in the supermarket, all make excellent additions to the dinner table. And though I wouldn't advise eating some species because of the psychedelic effects they may have, fungi are an important part of food and drink production in other ways too. Corn is made from the Fusarium fungus, and a form of Aspergillus mold is essential for soy sauce and miso production in Japan. Cheese lovers' lives wouldn't be the same without molds in the Penicillium genus, like P. glaucum, to make the blue veins and pungent odours of blue cheeses. And of course, we use yeast to turn grains and water into bread, and grains, fruit, or even potatoes into alcohol. Yeasts are single-celled fungi that reproduce asexually by budding. The next generation simply bud off the parent, rather than releasing spores like the toadstools we met earlier. When the yeast feeds off maltose sugar in flour, malt or mashed fruit, it produces carbon dioxide, plus water if there's plenty of oxygen, and alcohol if there's no oxygen. Fungi aren't always good for us, though. The infection athlete's foot is caused by fungi that feed on the keratin in skin, nails and hair. Patients with AIDS are susceptible to potentially fatal fungal lung infections, and many women and men around the world have experienced the discomfort of thrush caused by the Candida albicans fungus. But they can also provide us with ways of fighting disease. In order to stop bacteria and other fungi from invading their patch, many fungi produce chemicals that can stop other microorganisms in their tracks. And it was by isolating these chemicals that we developed some of our most important antibiotics. Perhaps the most famous fungi-derived drug, penicillin, was developed from Penicillium chrysogenum that's very closely related to the penicillium fungi we met earlier used to make blue cheese. So, fungi are an extremely diverse kingdom of organisms. Many plants couldn't survive without them, they're important decomposers, and a night out at a restaurant wouldn't be the same without them. Something to think about next time you wrinkle your nose in disgust at a mouldy piece of bread. That's it for this time. To get the answers to more science...
Eukaryotes, including bacteria. One of the essential sterols in the fungal cell membrane is ergosterol. In most fungi, it replaces the cholesterol component found in higher eukaryotic cell membranes. Ergosterol provides stability and flexibility to the fungal cell membrane. Lanosterol serves as the precursor for the formation of ergosterol. Although many enzymes are involved in the formation of ergosterol, the 14-alpha demethylase enzyme is responsible for the C14-alpha demethylation of lanosterol. It is an essential enzyme that serves as a target for azole antifungal agents. Although some azoles have an immediate effect of damaging the fungal cell membrane directly, their major mechanism of action is by binding to the cytochrome P450-mediated 14-alpha demethylase enzyme, thus inhibiting the demethylation of lanosterol and blocking the synthesis of ergosterol. In turn, this results in an accumulation of 14-alpha methylsterols and a depletion of ergosterol in the cell membrane. The lack of ergosterol in the fungal cell membrane makes it very unstable. Eventually, the cell membrane begins to break down, and the fungal organism dies.
Fungus. Even the word sounds gross. However, from mushrooms to molds to yeasts, fungi are actually pretty cool organisms. And without them, we wouldn't be able to eat portobello mushroom burgers or drink beer or wine. But they're not so cool when they cause infections, like athlete's foot, yeast infections, thrush, and toenail fungus. In addition to these relatively mild fungal infections, More severe systemic fungal infections are becoming more common in immunocompromised patients, such as those suffering from AIDS. These patients can get opportunistic infections caused by fungi that are around us all the time but are normally harmless. So it's definitely very important to have good antifungal drugs. The problem is that fungi, being eukaryotes, are very similar to our own cells, so it's hard to find drugs that are selectively toxic. Unfortunately, there aren't that many antifungal drugs available today, and the ones we have can cause major side effects, so they're often only used for infections that are really life-threatening. In this lesson, we'll look at the major types of modern antifungal drugs and see how they attempt to selectively target fungi without harming our own cells too much. Remember that one of the major targets for magic bullets, or selectively toxic drugs, was the microbial plasma membrane. But wait a minute, all cells have plasma membranes, and eukaryotic cell membranes must be pretty similar to each other, right? So how could a drug only target fungal plasma membranes and not our own? The answer is that fungi and animal cell membranes have different sterols, which are special lipids that can regulate membrane fluidity. You've probably heard of cholesterol, which is the major sterol in animal cell membranes. Fungal membranes have ergosterol instead. So many antifungal drugs target ergosterol as a way to disrupt the fungal plasma membrane. These drugs make fungal membranes very permeable, meaning that cellular contents can leak out and molecules from the outside can get in. This causes the fungus to die, so these agents are usually fungicidal. Polyenes, such as amphotericin B, are important drugs for treating systemic fungal infections. They attack ergosterol, injuring fungal membranes. Amphotericin B is an ingredient in topical preparations to treat thrush, which is a yeast infection in the mouth. Remember that when a drug is used topically, it means it is only used on a small region of the body. In contrast, giving a drug systemically means that the drug is distributed throughout the whole body. Amphotericin B is pretty harmless when used just in the mouth, but when given systemically as an IV, this drug is very toxic, especially to the kidneys and liver. It's so toxic that it is sometimes nicknamed amphoterrible. This drug is given as an IV only in extreme cases, for example, systemic fungal infections. The next group of antifungal drugs is the azoles. These drugs inhibit the synthesis of ergosterol, which means they block